It's officially August, and we've entered the dog days of summer, or as today's guest might call it, the hog days of summer. We've got recent Arkansas signee and Gatorade Girls Track and Field Athlete of the Year, Taylor Ewert. Stay tuned for our interview with her and more on Leo's Learnings. So you've been logging in those miles, you've been staying consistent, you're being mentally tough. What now? I'll tell you what now. You got to start thinking about what's next. The theme of this week is transitions. Right now, many of you out there logging your summer miles are about to have some sort of transition. Maybe it's going back to school or starting up regular team practice, or maybe you're joining a new team, getting a new coach, or moving up to high school or college. Whatever your transition, it's important to approach it with the right mindset. It can make or break your season. Our guest today is going through a transition of her own, having just graduated high school and signed to run at the University of Arkansas, Taylor Ewert. Taylor has made a name for herself competing as one of the top athletes in the nation across race walking, track, and cross country. She's a race walk national record holder, a multiple-time national champion in the steeplechase, and NXN runner-up. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to record this with you.
How are you? I guess, first of all, congratulations on all your accomplishments. Congratulations on being named Gatorade Athlete of the Year for track and field. How are you feeling?
Feeling great. It's been really nice to be able to be recognized for the work I've put in, and it's a great way to cap off, senior season, especially since we didn't really have much of a season.
Yeah. How are you dealing with that? How's training going?
It was tough initially to find out that, Ohio postponed a lot of our postseason events. So it was kind of evaluating okay, I was getting ready to taper up for postseason. Now I need to extend my training, and then to find out it's canceled. So, it was tough, but luckily my high school coach is really flexible, and, Coach Harder at Arkansas was able to help figure out what to do. And now I'm just, after taking a little break, I'm focusing on cross country. So not too bad, but I'm excited to start racing again if I can.
I know, aren't we all? We're excited to watch you. We're excited for your next steps, which we'll get to in just a moment. But really quick, you're a woman of many talents. You're racing, you're steeplechasing, you're walking, figure skating. Is there anything you can't do?
I can swim, but not very well. So I guess I can't swim well.
No
still triathlons for me.
No. Well, who knows? Maybe, right? But reflecting back on your high school career, what are some of your most memorable accomplishments? What are those races or those events that really stick out to you?
The first thing that comes to my mind for memorable events, probably not some of the big events, even though those were special because, I trained for them and I put a lot of work in to have a certain outcome. I think it was more the events where, either something was going on that was stressful, or I wasn't quite confident in my training, and I was still able to, just trust myself and go in and execute a race and then kind of surprise myself. And that's always such a really good feeling to come out of a race and be like, wow, actually I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to be okay. So definitely races like that.
Yeah. Is there one in particular that you have in mind, or?
Probably my going into my junior year, I had just finished my sophomore year. So it was New Balance Outdoor, the track and field nationals. And I was still kind of coming on the scene my sophomore year, and I had just finished up a pretty good track season, and I wanted to do the steeplechase at nationals, and it was only my second steeplechase. And so I entered into the event, and I was seated in a position where my parents were like, you could probably podium, so let's just make, top 3 or podium your goal. And I went into the race, and I was just really calm about it. And as the lap started to count down, I kind of pulled into the lead, and I just felt really good. I ended up winning it, and that was kind of the first race where I was like, wow, if I really put my mind to something, if I continue to, just kind of trust my training, trust myself, then I can really have like kind of the dream season I want. And it just kind of opened the door for me, and I was able to kind of find that next level I was looking for going into my junior year. So, that race.
Absolutely, Taylor. And, the more I hear about you, the more I hear just about your mindset, which we're going to get into in just a few moments. I wanted to mention some names, and I want you to tell me what these people mean to you.
Okay.
And the first one is Coach Howard Russ.
He means a lot to me. He was not only a really big advocate for me through high school, but he was also one of the first coaches that really kind of believed in me and encouraged me, to strive for greater things than what I was just accomplishing. And I'm really grateful for him. He was very flexible with my training. He was able to sit down and be flexible with me and talk me through the training. And a lot of high school coaches don't give the time of day to their athletes to sit down before each season, go through every race, go through all the workouts, explain it to me every time I had questions. And, most of the things, I'm still learning, but most of the things I do know now coming out of high school, I can give him credit for. So I really, he was a great high school coach. I appreciate him a lot.
And that is awesome. And big shout out to Coach Howard Russ. The second person, your father, Brian Ewert.
He means a lot. High school coaches, college coaches, even if I go professional coaches come and go. But, my family, they're always with me, especially my dad. Biggest advocate, biggest fan on the course, especially next to my mom too. So they're the ones that got me in the running. So.
Well, and you kind of just mentioned her, but the one on the next person on the list, I have your mother, Taylor Ewert.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your mom?
Yeah, she's kind of the magic behind all the training. She takes a big lead in my race walk training. She's at every international race. She takes a big part and, bike with me on long runs, being there for workouts, and she's also my mom. So she's, just so caring and loving. And I love training with her. I'm definitely going to miss her when I go to college a lot. No, she's done a lot. She's also a doctor of physical therapy. So she's been able to help my running mechanics and help keep me healthy too.
Wow, that's amazing. I also saw a couple of videos where she was definitely biking next to you. So that's big props to her, big props to your dad and your coach. And one of the things I've always kind of mentioned is, surrounding yourself by the right people. And usually when you surround yourself by the right people, it's the keys to success. And you're definitely surrounded by the right people.
Exactly.
Okay, so your coach, he mentioned something. He had this phrase about you. He said, you're a ferocious, determined technician. How do you balance race walking and running?
That's a good question. A lot of people ask me that. And I think it comes down to majority of my training, I would say is probably 90% running and 10% race walking. But it really comes down to preparing for a big race. It's all about focusing on form in my race walking and really start narrowing down certain days to do specific workouts. So that's kind of how I balance them. And sometimes it is kind of mentally tough when you, for example, have to race walk one race and they have to come back and run another race. So it's kind of the training starts getting, interconnected. But, the last 4 years I've been able to make it work. So hopefully throughout college I'll be able to continue and elevate on that.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I've definitely heard you doing some amazing things, steeplechasing and race walking and winning both of them, which is amazing. So I know you have very good chances of making it to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And, we're also dealing with a postponed Olympic year. It's supposed to be this year. Now is next year. How are you adapting to those changes?
I think any professional athlete can say the same thing, that anyone that was training for the Olympics can say that finding out the Olympics being postponed is definitely a pretty big bump in the road. A lot of people train really hard for a 4-year cycle to go out and perform and hopefully make an Olympic team, and to be so close and then have it kind of pushed back is tough. But, running's all about delayed gratification, and 1 year compared to 4 is not that much. So I think I just need to focus on, training and staying focused and keeping the goal at the front of my mind, and just realizing that maybe this extra year is going to just help give me that little extra push to make sure I hopefully make the team.
Wow. And, I really appreciate the way that you look at it. You're looking at it from a very good point of view. You're staying very, very positive. And so on that note, we also know that you're getting ready to go through a transition, and the theme of today's episode is transitioning. You've been recruited by Arkansas. You're getting ready to join a new team. You're getting ready to have a new coach. How are you approaching those transitions?
I'm definitely trying to approach them with an open and positive mindset. I think whenever there's a time of change, there's always time for growth. And, I think going to Arkansas and kind of having, my training kind of change a little bit, new teammates, a new coach, I think that's just going to help, develop me as an athlete. And I think it's important that, I do experience change in my life. So I'm excited for the transition, but there's always a little bit of uncertainty in it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right, that I'm so glad that you're very looking forward to that change, because sometimes change is good, right? Sometimes it can be scary.
Exactly.
It can be a little scary, but it's good.
Yeah.
So, and on that note, you've been very successful in what you do. And obviously you're doing something right, which we definitely want to highlight. And so what advice would you give to younger athletes, or potentially, these athletes that are making the transition from summer running or summer miles, back into the season, or, they're getting ready to go into high school? What advice would you give these youth athletes?
My advice for probably the youth athletes, coming into cross country season would just be, to be patient. I think a lot of people like to jump the gun and compare themselves to their teammates when it comes to training. And I think it's important to listen to your body, listen to your coach, and just trust the process, be patient, and you've got to look at the grand scheme of things and realize that, the season's long. You want to be healthy and running your best at the end of the season, not necessarily the beginning. You want to be healthy, but, you got to grow. You want to peak, This season's all about, building a base, and think of it almost kind of like a pyramid. The bigger your base, the higher the peak. So that's probably my best advice I can give them.
Yeah. And what advice would you give an athlete that's perhaps joining a new team or a new coach?
Just to be open to, I think, everything. I think sometimes when people set certain expectations, or they kind of label themselves of, oh, well, I don't do well when I'm training with others, or I have a hard time with change, I think you kind of weigh yourself down. So I think it's really important to be open to, everything, and just not label yourself, and go in with the mindset that you're going to be okay. And that, like you said, change means growth. And sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to, grow. You got to get outside that comfort box. So.
I want to, and talking about transitions, I want to transition into another question. And I want to talk about self-belief. And you have definitely accomplished a lot by setting your mind to it, and by believing in yourself. From what I've read and from what I know about you, you've been very active in your church. You've served as an altar girl. I also want to mention I did too. I served as an altar boy, and you've done a lot for the community. You've helped feed the homeless, which is amazing. How has your faith helped you, and how has your faith given you a mind shift in your running?
Yeah, my faith has done a lot for me throughout my life, and especially in my running. And, I believe that if I put my running in God's hands, that I'm going to see the work of God's hands in my running per se. And when you trust in, a greater being, I think it allows you to trust in things you can't always necessarily see. And going into a race, I can't necessarily control or see what's going to happen, but I just need to have faith. And if I have faith in, my religion, then I also have faith in myself. And knowing that everything I do is for, my religion, my community, my church. And so I think when it really comes down to that I always have that external support, and it helps me believe in myself.
No, thank you so much for that.
Yes.
And as you prepare for this new transition, into college, what new goals do you have for yourself, and how do you gear up for them mentally?
Yeah, well, goals are tough because it's when it gets down to it, I don't like to set super pinpoint goals. I think it's important to want to see yourself grow, but you don't want to be limited by your goals. And so going into probably college cross country, I definitely want to continue on the goal of just simply improving every day, every week, every month, and every year. And if I can see just, little improvements here and there, that's what's going to really add up in the great scheme of things. And when it comes down to it, if I can be a better version of myself from where I was last year, then that's all I can really ask for, and hope that in 2 years I'll be a little bit better than I was today. And that's, in running, we're just trying to get a little bit faster, and over time, if you can improve, that's a pretty big jump in your training and your racing. So that's probably the biggest goal I have, is just to continue to see improvement, whether, it's small or it's big, because I know that's just going to add up.
No, absolutely. And we know that you've already accomplished so much at an early age. But for someone that's, looking to set some goals and, perhaps looking for, to better their life in certain ways, what advice would you give them in terms of goal settings? And I think you've already kind of touched on some, but what advice would you give them?
Yeah, when it comes to setting goals, I think it's important, like I said, keep it realistic to a sense. I think it's good to have big goals that you can shoot for, but I think it's also important to set little goals along the way that you can achieve. And when it comes to setting goals, I just think it's really important to, focus on respecting those goals and centering those goals from a place of like passion, not always necessarily like comparing them to other people's accomplishments. Make sure they're a goal that you can achieve, you can work for, and you're going to respect.
No, thank you for that, Taylor. You're very wise. You're very wise.
Thank you.
So for our final question, when you're digging deep in competition and you're going to that place where it's definitely hurting, what do you think about? And do you have any running mantras?
Well, in preparation for a race, going up to that race, I tend to write down in a journal, like every night, just, my race plan, the thoughts I want to be having. So, and then that day and the days leading up to it, I'll go back and reread, I'll add little notes, and that way it almost kind of builds a muscle memory. So when it comes to race day, I know what my plan is, I know what I'm going to be thinking, I have different outcomes kind of built up in my mind. So if something's not necessarily going the way I want, or, the way you would expect, then you're able to kind of control the situation and just kind of flow with it. So when it comes to a race day, my biggest mantra is probably, believe and achieve. I think if you believe in yourself, you believe in your plan, you're going to go into that race so much more confident, and just also being positive. I think perception of effort has a lot to do with that. If you're going to tell yourself you don't feel good and you start getting negative, you're not going to feel good. So if you can just try to be really positive, have a positive perception of your effort in a race, then you're just going to achieve a lot more. And, that's what I'm thinking in a race. I'm thinking about, my race plan, those little mantras I've written down. And those are all just, I think, things that have really benefited me, especially when it starts to get tough. I can kind of lean back on that and understand this is what I need to be doing. This is what I need to be telling myself.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. I may even write that down. So Taylor, before we let you go, we want to get to know you as fast as we can. And so we have 20 rapid fire questions for you. Don't worry, we're not going to make you choose.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we're not going to make you choose between running and walking.
Thank goodness.
And so the question is, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let's go. Let's get into it.
Long run or interval workouts?
Long run.
What was your highest mileage week?
50 miles, hopefully 60 soon.
What was your longest run?
12 miles, hopefully 13.
There we go. Make art or go to a museum?
Museum.
Swim in an ocean or climb a mountain?
Climb a mountain.
Your favorite runner?
Paula Radcliffe or Dina Castor.
Ice bath or hot tub?
Ice bath.
Would you rather fight one bear or 100 squirrels?
I think one bear. That's a lot of squirrels. I feel like I'd be overpowered.
Okay. Two great Ohio athletes, LeBron James or Jesse Owens?
LeBron James.
What is a hidden talent that you have?
I can ride a unicycle.
Woo! Talented.
Yeah.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
What show are you currently watching?
I just started watching the Netflix show Tiger King, I think that's called. It was popular a couple months ago. Kind of crazy.
You're in for a surprise. Yeah. Which is better, Cincinnati or Columbus?
Ooh, Columbus.
Favorite non-running sport?
I like figure skating.
Woo. Track or cross country?
Cross country.
Favorite pizza?
Hawaiian pizza. Controversial.
Justin Bieber or Justin Timberlake?
Like Justin Timberlake.
Coffee or hot cocoa?
Coffee.
Country or hip hop?
Hip hop.
Okay, your high school mascot is a beaver. Your college mascot is a hog. Which is better, beavers or hogs?
Ooh. Hog, I guess. Not much to work with.
But we had to ask you because we wish you well as you go into college, and with that, we'll be rooting for you. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right, here are a few tips that will help you to not only deal with transitions, but use them to your advantage. Number 1, goal setting. Identify your goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, write them down, and work towards your goals by using small steps to get there. Number 2, find good mentors. They can be coaches or older teammates that have already been through the grind. Number 3, keeping a strong positive attitude and mindset. This positive mindset will help you overcome any obstacles or scenarios in training and in life that you may face. And a bonus tip from Taylor.
I think whenever there's a time of change, there's always time for growth, and be patient. I think a lot of people like to jump the gun and compare themselves to their teammates when it comes to training. And I think it's important to listen to your body, listen to your coach, and just trust the process, be patient. This season's all about, building a base, and think of it almost kind of like a pyramid. The bigger your base, the higher the peak. So
that does it for this episode of Leo's Learnings. Hopefully we gave you some valuable tips to help you be successful in your upcoming cross-country season. And if you need some extra motivation to stay consistent, check out Hoka's program, the Summer Miles Club, where you can earn badges and sweet prizes when you hit milestones. If you haven't earned your 100-mile hat yet, get moving. And if you run 400 miles, check out this prize pack you get. And now I'm passing it off to a couple Hoka athletes.